Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome to First Things First.
Look who's here.
I am Jenna Wolfe. We have Cris Carter, the Hall of Famer, back with us after a day in Atlanta yesterday. Thank you. Nick Wright, right here. We have some football to discuss, thanks to last night. Other things going on. Doug Peterson all but guaranteeing a win this week against the Cowboys. Freddie Kitchens expects Baker Mayfield to turn things around and quickly. But we have to start with a little Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers facing the Detroit Lions. We picked this up in the fourth quarter. Packers down 9. Rodgers finds Allen Lazard, 35-yard pass. Rodgers was running out of options with no Devontae Adams, no Geronimo Allison. How about this? Lazard was on the practice squad as early as this offseason. Touchdown Green Bay, Packers down 2. Packers with one last chance, under 2 to play in the fourth. Rodgers scrambles, throws the incomplete pass that would have forced a fourth down, but hold on. Refs call an illegal use of hands to the face. Take a look at this play. You be the judge. Lions lineman Trey Flowers called for this penalty twice on third down in the fourth. So that means Mason Crosby, with 2 seconds left on the clock, nails the 23-yarder to win the game. Packers improved to 5-1. Here's Aaron Rodgers after the win.
A lot of resilience with our guys. Matt talks a lot about kind of a no-blink mentality. I think that just means that you move on to the next play. And you have a short memory. That's important in this business. But cliches aside, it's really about the confidence. I think we were a very confident group. And even though we got punched in the mouth a little bit to start the game, I think we responded the right way.
All right, Nick, how'd the Packers do it? How'd they battle back and take the W in this one?
Well, two distinct things were going on in this game. One is the Packers are a really, really good football team that can beat you a multitude of different ways. And if you're Detroit and you jump out on them early, a Green Bay team that has been elite early in games, this is their worst start to any game all year, you cannot be kicking 26-yard field goal, 22-yard field goal. You have to turn those threes into 7. And in the second half of this game, the Lions offense just died. In the second half of the game, they only had 2 drives go more than 10 yards after moving the ball almost at will in the first half. So that happened. That Detroit can say we had opportunities. We needed to take better advantage of those opportunities. The best Lion yesterday might have been Matt Prater, who was just nails from every distance field goal, making 5 field goals. So I understand that part of it, and Green Bay deserves credit for weathering the storm, and Detroit's going to feel a little angsty about not getting those touchdowns. With that said, this, unfortunately, game is not going to be remembered for those things. It's going to be remembered for when Detroit had a 9-point lead with 10 minutes left in the game, and they get a sack on Aaron Rodgers, where the Packers are going to be in a bad way, down 2 scores, having to punt inside of 10 minutes. Illegal hands to the face is called on Trey Flowers, a penalty evidently he's never been called for in his entire NFL career, and we see the replay, and it is a legal hand to the shoulder. Now, it's a powerful hand, and it's such a powerful hand that he is, with that hand, forcing David Bakhtiari's back and head backwards, but it's with a legal placement. And if that's not bad, what makes it even worse is the exact same player on the exact same offensive lineman gets called for the exact same incorrect penalty that would have been Packers kicking a 35-ish yard field goal with 1:40 left, and it would, even if they make it, Detroit down 1 with the ball, chance to win. The Packers now can run out the clock. So, yes, Detroit had opportunities, just like, by the way, the Rams had had opportunities in the NFC Championship game after the non-call and pass interference. Even on a call that bad, yes, you have opportunities. You can say we could have won the game. But this was an officiating blunder or blunders that if you're Detroit, you're saying, yeah, we'll get a letter from the league saying we screwed that up. What is that going to do for us? It marred an otherwise really good football game.
Yeah, well, they lost the game in the beginning. If you know what the end is going to be and you look back on it and say, well, how would you be able to correct it, even if with the bad calls? If you get more than a field goal off those first initial drives, you talked about in the second half, their inability to be able to move the ball. That's because the Green Bay does have a defense, and their defense did tighten up after first drive, 69 yards, second drive, 74 yards, third drive, 64 yards, and you only get 3 points, 3 and 3. An NFL game.
3, 7 and 3.
Yeah, 3, 7 and 3. But those first couple ones, especially inside the 10-yard line, you don't get touchdowns in Lambeau Field. There's a good chance you're going to lose the game. And Aaron Rodgers was able to, and they were able to stay patient enough, not getting out of their running game that Matt LaFleur has given them since he's been there. And in this game, you could see that offensive line is getting better and better at running the ball. But because the Lions weren't able to score touchdowns early compared to field goals, Green Bay was able to be patient, hang in the game, and even at that point being within 2 scores. It should have been outside of that margin because they had dominated the game. But Green Bay's defense, the Smith brothers, they were back on the case in the second half, harassing Matthew Stafford. And as you said, this is a good team. And before, they only had one path, one way to be able to win a game. That was with Aaron Rodgers' heroics. They do have a number of ways that they can win now.
So the Packers won. They're now 5-1. But they do have issues on offense. Aaron Rodgers found a way to find 9 different receivers last night, but you still have no Davante Adams. You have injuries to Geronimo Allison. Scantling was injured as well. Are you worried about what Aaron Rodgers at some point is not going to be able to do?
Well, listen, they found a way to win last night with no Davante Adams. You mentioned Geronimo Allison went out. Marquez Valdez-Scantling went out briefly in the game. He came back. It looked scary, by the way, his injury. I was surprised he was able to come back. But you saw the downside to not having reliable receivers. Now, the Lazard kid, the undrafted kid that's caught the touchdown to cut it to 1 score, that's a hell of a play by another one of these 6'5" receivers they seem to like so much in Green Bay. But Shepard, their punt returner, and then all of a sudden had to be emergency wide receiver, you saw why he is not high on the receiving depth chart. It's not only that he fumbled the punt, but when Green Bay was initially trying to come back, Rodgers throws a pass to him at the goal line that literally hits him in the face and is picked off and returned the other way for Detroit. Another possession, by the way, Detroit can only turn into 3. But Green Bay, they're now 3-0 in the division, in the toughest division in football. They have these injuries, but they have a little bit of margin of error now, having beaten the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions, and having the second best record in the NFC behind only San Francisco.
Yeah, and they're going to need it. The lack of wide receivers, and I told you guys when Davante Adams got hurt, that toe injury, it's a significant injury, especially for the 2 positions, defensive back and wide receiver, because the constant pressure of you trying to explode or trying to stop and needing your big toe to be able to do that. So that turf toe, I believe, will be part of their storyline all year. It's hard to replace his productivity. And we have to realize that Green Bay's front office, we knew they went through a whole facelift as far as moving off the coach, going to spend some money on the defense. It's going to take at least another offseason for them to be able to add some things on the offensive side. They do have 2 good quality running backs. I don't believe that they have a tight end. They need a younger tight end compared to the 2 veteran tight ends they have now, and they need someone opposite of Davante Adams. But given all the resources they spent and given everything that they've done, that's the only part that you can see right now on this roster that prevents them from being the elite team in the NFC.
They don't have the best record in the NFC, but where do you rank them in the NFC right now?
Oh, listen, I think the Packers right now have shown they're the best team in the NFL.
Better than the Niners.
I do. Just because right now the Niners defense is better than the Packers. The Packers defense is very good, and I trust their passing game more than I trust the Niners passing game, even though both have questions at wide receiver right now.
I worry about Green Bay's run defense. That's been suspect, and you know how San Francisco runs the ball. And Detroit last night, did they sack Aaron Rodgers, 6 times?
Sounds right.
6 times? Okay, now, how are they going to block them?
Sure.
I keep telling Green Bay's offensive line, sometimes they get these lofty accolades, but I believe that they're overrated. And that San Francisco front, to me, I believe right now San Francisco is the most feared team because that style, it travels anywhere. Davante Adams, we don't know about him. We don't know about his overall health because we know those other receivers aren't going to be able to hold down that wide receiver spot.
Just quickly to circle back on the Detroit side of things, Detroit's played 3 games this year they didn't win. They are all gutting games.
Losses.
I mean, the game, you're up 18 against Arizona in the 4th quarter. That's a tie.
Week 1.
You're up 3 against the Chiefs. Have them in a 4th and 8 in your building. You lose that game, and then this one where they had plenty of opportunities, and then the blown calls go against them. A team that legitimately could be 5-0, a shocking 5-0 like San Francisco, 2-1. Tough for Matt Patricia and his crew.
Well, it wasn't the Packers' greatest game, but they got the win. They are now 5-1. All right, on to the Eagles now. Coming off a tough loss to the Vikings on Sunday. The road ahead could be a bumpy one now for them. Bills, Bears, Patriots, Seahawks. It all starts this Sunday when they head to Dallas to face the Cowboys, another team hungry to get back on track. But not to worry, says Doug Peterson. He likes his chances in Dallas.
I know the sky's falling outside.
Yes.
You know, it's falling, and I get that, and the fans are reeling just a little bit. But you know, we're going down to Dallas, and our guys are going to be ready to play, and we're going to win that football game. And when we do, we're in first place in the NFC East. We control our own destiny. We're right where we need to be. Has it been perfect or beautiful or all of that? No. But all we got to do is try to be 1-0 this week, beat the Dallas Cowboys. We're in first place, and listen, they're reeling too. I mean, they're struggling too. They've dropped their last 3 games, so this will be an exciting football game.
All right, Stacey, he's sort of walking back on that, some semblance of a guarantee a little bit. But what'd you make of what Doug Peterson had to say?
I don't have a problem with him because a lot of times as a coach, the coach is going to say things, Jenna, about players and everything that it's not as if he's fabricating it, but not necessarily the truth. They asked the question, well, what about the defensive tackle? It's like, oh, you know, he's playing better. You know, he's had a little injury and everything. Covering up, maybe the guy's not playing well. So in this, what we call a partnership, we realize as players, when I go out there, people like you are going to ask me questions. I'm not going to always get it right. But I expect the coach to be able to correct it and my teammates to be able to back me up. And a lot of times with the coach, he'll say something, and it's up to the players to be able to back him up. And you have a few games, and Doug's trying to back it back a little bit as far as, no, I'm not trying to say I guarantee to win. But if he had, it's up to the players and to realize he's trying to send a message because, man, they do need this game. The messaging point, if we do win this game, we are in first place. Dallas is suffering just like it's an odd year. At 500, one game above 500, you could win this division. But at certain points in the season, you have to say things and do things. So I have no problem with him saying we're getting ready to go to Dallas. And after watching Dallas the last 3 games, I ain't scared of them. You know, SMU wants to play them this weekend if they can get them on the schedule. Like the Cowboys, they're not going to present a whole bunch of problems and stuff when the Eagles look at the film. So Doug is trying to get his team going. He realizes that the truth of the matter is, even at 4-3, we will be leading our division. So even if that had been 6-1, leading the division is leading the division at a certain point. Yes, so is it going to be hard to get a wild card spot? They realize that. The season's not going how they want it to go, but staying ahead of Dallas is the priority. So I had no problem with his comments as far as going to Dallas and what needs to get done.
Listen, I think there's only going to be one person on this set today that had a real problem with his comments, and that's Coach Mancini. He'll be out here at some point, and I'm sure he'll tell me why I'm wrong here. But I'm with you, Chris, for a couple reasons. One is, I believe Doug Peterson is a really good coach who has a good pulse of his team. I've watched enough Eagles games over the last few years that he already is top 5 in the league as far as game management, as far as the types of things the coach can help you on a Sunday to win football games. And I feel like watching from afar over the last few years, he understood what he has shown that he understands, what his team needs to tap into. And maybe right now, they don't need to tap into underdog. They need to tap into front runner. They need to tap into, you know what, we're just better than them. We're going to win this game. We're going to be in first place. We're going to control our own destiny. And he needs to instill confidence in the group. What's the only potential downside to him saying that? To him putting out this, quote, guarantee, unquote? Well, it could be bulletin board material for the Dallas Cowboys. Man, this is the biggest game of the Cowboys season. They've lost 3 in a row. If they are not at maximum motivation for the home game against Philadelphia after they just got embarrassed by the Jets, then they're not a real team. So the idea, I don't think that some Cowboys were going to be sleepwalking through this week and they're going to be like, Doug Peterson said what?
Right.
Now
We're
we're going to go get them. So to me, this is a comment with very little downside, and I don't think it was casually thrown out there. He knew he was doing this radio interview. He, I think, went into it saying, you know what? I'm going to try to instill some confidence in my group that right now might be a little shaken given how they played against Minnesota.
Right. I agree with both of you. And on the flip side of that, Jason Garrett responded to Doug Peterson's comments with, well, we're just excited about the challenge. I think one comment really can sort of get your team riled up, and the other one is just a toss-away comment. Which of these two teams do you trust more, the Cowboys or the Eagles?
Ooh. Well, Jenna, I'm not one to just give away my trust. So,
well, we know.
I mean, right now, I would have to say Philadelphia, because we talked from the beginning of the season. Howie Roseman, he's got the best roster top to bottom. But the two weakest groups in that, the linebackers of Philadelphia and their secondary, have been exposed because the front is not getting there. The defense is not worth the money they're paying them. They are not getting the type of sacks that they're supposed to. You know, Jim Schwartz is a defensive coordinator. He believes in pressure. And this is one of the most talented fronts that he's ever had. So even though that, I would still say I would take them over the Cowboys. I don't know who the Cowboys are going to be without their offensive line. A powerful football team. How can they score points and be finesse? I don't see it as much as Philadelphia. You can play some coverages. I believe their rush will come back later in the season. So I believe those things are a little more correctable.
On October 15th, after the Cowboys lose to the Jets and the Eagles get embarrassed by the Vikings, asking who you trust more amongst these teams is something apropos to who do you trust more to house sit for you, the thief or the arsonist? It's like, neither. Are the Giants available as an option?
Well, the stealing might come in handy later on.
Okay, so
arson won't.
I feel like the Eagles are the better choice, but that's based purely on preseason feelings about them. Right? If we went into this year with a blank slate, as far as no expectations for any of these teams, I'm not joking when I say I think a lot of people would say, well, what about the Giants? That if they right now are a game out of first place, are getting the best player on their team back next week, have played a hell of a lot better since they made that quarterback change, and if they beat Arizona this week, are going to be in second place because one of these two teams is going to lose just a game back. Now, I'm not out here saying I feel best about the Giants because I don't, but they're the NFC East, with those three teams, if we want to expand to three or just two teams, the best thing they all have going for them is the neighborhood in which they live. Because if any of these teams were in the NFC North, the NFC South, or the NFC West, they would be right now drawing dead to win the division. Right now, the Eagles or Cowboys can't compete with the Packers, the Saints, the Niners, the Seahawks. Those are the true cream of the crop in the NFC this year. These teams just happen to be in the right division.
Yeah, mediocrity. NFC East. Lamar Jackson had a day on Sunday. I'll take that, too. First quarterback to throw for 200 yards and rush for 150 in a regular season game in the Super Bowl era. He's on pace to break Michael Vick's single-season rushing record of 1,039 yards for a quarterback. Remember, it was just last month Lamar told reporters he hates running. Remember, said he'd do it only if he had to. Well, he didn't hate it on Sunday. Nick, does Lamar need to change his style if he wants to stay healthy?
Maybe, but right now this is the style that leads to the Ravens winning games. They're the leader in their division. They're, to me, clearly the third best team in the conference. And with a chance, with the way the Chiefs are uneven right now, they got a real chance to potentially go on a real playoff run and maybe even make a Super Bowl. Here's the reality with where Lamar is as a passer and where the Ravens' offense is. He has started 14 games in his career. In the games he has carried the ball 10 or more times, they are 9-1. The one loss was the game in Kansas City last year that they had won. So they have played great in the 10 games where they're almost 10-0 in the 10 games where he has 10-plus carries. In the 4 games where he has fewer than 10 carries, they're 1-3. And the one win was the game against Miami to start the year, and Miami's not fielding a real football team this year. So we now have almost a season's worth of starts to show you if the Ravens are going to win with Lamar Jackson at this stage of his career as the starting quarterback, he might not need 18, 19 carries, but 10, 11, 12 carries is the requisite number. So he has done a good job of avoiding the huge hit C. I don't think this is sustainable over multiple years, but it's going to have to be relatively sustainable for the rest of this season as he develops as a passer.
Are those plays, those run plays, are those scripted run plays, or is it if you have to and the play breaks down, you can run? Is it game planned going into a game?
Well, this is the thing, Jenna. What they've done with the offensive coordinator there, Greg Roman, I sat down with him several weeks ago. And what he looks at the defense and what problems do the defense present for Baltimore and what they want to do, then they decide how Lamar is going to play that week. If they're going to give you the pass coverage, if they're going to have the safeties up defending the run, they're going to throw the ball over the top. Now, they're not going to be able to throw it as effectively as they did against Miami in week number 1, but you also have to realize his favorite target, Hollywood Brown, a rookie, has missed all of training camp, very seldom practices once a week. So the timing in that front passing game, it's going to take some time to be able to get there. So for me, I like the approach. In last week's game, because of who the opposition was, he said in 90% of the runs were designed by the offensive coordinator. So for me, the reason why I don't think he should change is because I've talked to the coordinator and they do have a plan long-term and short-term. And another reason is when they're running, they're not running because he can't throw. They're running because that's the best available play to be able to run. If you look at the other quarterbacks, the great ones in NFL history in the last 30 years, let's look at Randall Cunningham and also Michael Vick. Those guys couldn't throw when they wanted to. The reason why they ran as much is because their running was more advanced than their throwing. They didn't advance as far as a passer until late in their 30s. Randall Cunningham, he had retired and come to the Vikings when he was the MVP in 1998. And Michael Vick will tell you, in Atlanta, he was not a thrower. He didn't get that till later in his career, and it was never better than his running ability. So I think Lamar's at a great spot. The organization is going to support him, and the offensive coordinator, week in and week out, they're going to change based on they have confidence in either way to be able to defeat the defense.
And one of the reasons you can have this many designed runs, and one of the reasons he can go 19 for $150 against Cincinnati, is because they have to respect him as a thrower, is because the defense has to drop the requisite number of people into coverage, and therefore he has those running lanes. But you can't he's right now the 8th leading rusher in the NFL. If you remove the week 1 game where he only had 6 yards against the Dolphins because he didn't have to run, he is 80 yards away from leading the NFL in rushing.
That's crazy.
He has been dynamic in that aspect.
You can keep it up as long as he takes care of himself at the end of the runs. He's not challenging defenders, and he's got that beep, beep speed. I mean, he's next to guys, he go beep, beep. I mean, he just pulls away. So take care of himself. I think they're doing the right thing.
And for him, the question is, can he stay healthy for 10 more games at least? All right, moving on to the Cleveland Browns. Browns are coming off back-to-back losses, dropping them to 2-4 on the season. You can pick your reason why. New coach, shoddy offensive line, quarterback, maybe all of the above, but the quarterback is getting the brunt of the blame. Baker Mayfield threw 3 picks Sunday. He's got 25 picks over the last 2 seasons, and that's the most in the NFL. No surprise, Freddie Kitchen was asked about his quarterback and had this to say.
We played fairly well. We had 400 yards of offense. We had 28 points, and that's with the 4 turnovers. So if you take those away, I mean, I don't know what else to do. You take turnovers away. Of course, that was the game was won and lost right there with the turnovers. Won on their end, lost on ours. So it has everything to do with turnovers. I think Baker feels like he faces adversity every time he goes on the field. I expect the best from Baker moving forward. I expect the best from him tomorrow. I expect the best out of him, when we line up to play New England.
Look, Cece, the knock on Baker is he has so much talent around him. Why isn't he more successful? Why is he having such a hard time getting the ball to the receivers? What is stopping him from being more successful?
Well, Baker Mayfield, he does have a lot of talent around him, but the talent's not in front of him. The talent's on the perimeter. It's not protecting the house. It's a satellite dish. It's a fancy new brick pavers on the driveway.
You got a pool in the backyard.
I mean, my goodness. I mean, give me some concrete, all right? Give me something that I can put some people in front of me, because regardless of what you think, there is a certain height you need to play this position. And if you're going to have people in your face, your height's going to be challenged as far as there are windows that quarterbacks that are challenged that they have to throw through. If I'm 6'5", I'm throwing over the windows and through the windows. But if I'm 6-ish, which Baker is, which Russell is, if I don't have clear windows to be able to throw the ball through, I'm going to struggle. And I don't know a quarterback that thrives getting hit. Haven't met one. Don't ever think that I will. Not a real good one. There's some guys that said, oh, yeah, I like contact, but they're knuckleheads. They're not quarterbacks. They're guys playing the position. So those are the things to me. So we keep saying, oh, Baker's got all this talent. Baker's got all this talent. Hey, now let's just wait a second. They need to spread out some of those resources, because that offensive line that last year played amazing when Baker was in the lineup. This year, they have been a question mark, and we thought they would be a question mark. That's the reason why we couldn't say, oh, you know something, guaranteed they're going to win 10 wins. No, because the offensive line is hurting them. So he's going to have to learn how to play under duress. He's going to also have to anticipate a little bit quicker. He's going to also have to understand that when I'm weak on the left side, I need to be able to get the ball out. I'm not as athletic as I was in college. All right, people are a lot closer to me. The game is totally different, and I believe he will continue to adjust to the game. But for us to think he's got all this super duper talent and he should be more successful, no, because he's playing that position that's more difficult when you can't see and you have too much seepage in the offensive line. It's been hard for Baker to play the position, and it would have been hard for any quarterback under the situation they've been under.
But that's, to me, why this specific game against the Seahawks is so frustrating for Baker Mayfield. Because this was the game where he was pressured the least he's been pressured all season. He was kept clean. He wasn't sacked. And there were still 3 turnovers. Now, I know at least one of them you can say that was a good throw and that was bad luck. And on that last one, you say was a miscommunication. He thought the running back was supposed to go outside. The running back
in zone coverage, running
inside.
back's supposed to stay outside. He's already open. The coach doesn't want him to run anymore because he's already open, and Baker anticipated that, and he started to come inside, and the ball hits off of his arm.
Yeah, he ends up reaching behind and ball hits off, and then it's essentially game over. But Freddie Kitchens' comments there, that's if not for the turnovers, that's a very close cousin to, aside from that, Miss Lincoln, how was the play? I mean, aside from the turnovers. I don't have it in front of me. How many teams in this league this week lost that would have said, well, if not for those turnovers? If not for the turnovers, we'd have been fine. The problem is no team over the last 18, 19 weeks since Baker's been the quarterback can anticipate more turnovers than the Browns. The list Baker's on is a bad one. And even if some of these are not his fault, the point is, for every quarterback that throws interceptions, some aren't their fault. But nobody's got 25 picks since he became the starting quarterback. Jameis is the only one in the 20s, and Jameis is going to lose his job because of it. Look at those names. Rosen on the cusp, Jared Goff playing the worst football of his career, Phillip Rivers quietly having a really rough year, and Josh Allen, who is learning to play the position. Baker Mayfield, a dark horse MVP candidate, would have been dark horse MVP candidate, cannot be the tops of that list.
So what do you say to a guy like Baker Mayfield? Is it try to hold on to the ball a little longer, try to protect the ball? Is it a conversation with the wide receivers? I know
think
it's a simple
the opposite.
question.
I think it's get rid of the ball
Get rid of the ball
quicker.
faster?
The conversation is, Jenna, the football is the most valuable asset on the field. And whoever's got it got to be responsible for it. That's the way Dennis Green used to teach it. And he used to also talk to the role players. Listen, if I throw it to you, I got 5 other Pro Bowlers that I decided to. I didn't throw it to Jake Reed. I didn't throw it to Cris Carter. I didn't throw it to Randy Moss. I didn't throw it to Robert Smith. I decided to give it to you. And if you drop the ball, all right, the chance of you getting the ball again. Now, the quarterback, they're going to touch the ball. Now, if I believe in it, Buffalo, do they believe in their quarterback? How do I know they don't? Based on their passing attempts.
Yep.
When you drop back 30, 40 times a game, the coach is saying, I'm relying on every decision they're making. Another analogy he used to use is the quarterback's driving the car, and every time you turn it over is a crash. How many crashes do you think the team can survive from? All right? Now, we all got insurance, but we're not trying to utilize it. The quarterback is responsible for taking care of the football. Now, I know communication in the passing game, I will tell you at least 4 or 5 of those interceptions are the wide receivers' faults. Now, the one thing the wide receivers don't do after the game is go up and take responsibility for those. But you can see in miscommunication, Baker thought a guy was going to go here. He thought it was man. They thought it was zone. Miscommunication leads to turnovers. But the ultimate responsibility is the person with the ball in their hand. So Freddie Kitchens can say, okay, yes, if the turnovers are gone, but they're not. In 7 straight games, Baker has put his team as a deficit because the number 1 stat in the NFL, it's not time of possession, it's not rushing yards, it's not sacks. The thing that dictates winners from losers, turning the ball over are not turning over. Who wins that battle? And Cleveland's had a hard time doing that.
And to finish your analogy, see, Baker Mayfield, since he's been the quarterback of the Browns, 7 times he's crashed the car multiple times in a game. 7 times he's thrown multiple interceptions. The Browns, not shockingly, 0-7 in those games. They can't survive. They might be able to survive 1 crash. They can't survive 2, they've shown.
Only the Giants and the Dolphins have a worse turnover ratio than the Browns. How about that? Back here, first things first, now joined by former NFL head coach Eric Mangini.
Hey!
Coach, welcome to the
morning.
show.
How are you doing?
You surprised us.
I'm excited to see him. He's my favorite guy. What?
He's all of our favorite guys.
You say that to everyone.
He's all of our favorite guys.
I've watched the show when I haven't been here, and it's like, oh my God,
He's
my
the
favorite
only one
guy.
that
That
gets
is not
multiple
what happened.
Oh my
hashtags.
God, the funniest coach
No,
ever.
that is...
I'm still salty about that from all you guys.
He's annoyed because
I
we
was
once
on the
talked
list.
about who our funniest guest was. He wasn't here, and his was the one name we did not mention.
Too bad there's not a caller. in
Coach,
line.
you're the funniest guy we've ever had on the show.
Yeah.
Feel better?
You're the most sincere host I've ever.
Yes! Yes!
Let's talk some Patriots. It is getting harder and harder to preach next man up for the Patriots as their offensive injuries are mounting. Last week, Josh McDaniels was forced to use only 1 personnel grouping in the second half of the game. Some speculating that the Pats may attempt to lure Gronk out of retirement. Tom Brady was asked about this during his weekly radio appearance yesterday.
Look, I love that guy. I'm so happy that he's enjoying, his time, and I'm happy that he's enjoying his life, and he seems to really be doing a lot of great things. So he knows how I feel about him, and I want what's best for him, and he's the only person that can make those decisions. So I don't lobby for those things. I have a great relationship with him. He's given actually a hell of a lot to our team already over the course of a long period of time, and I think people should be very appreciative and, for what he's brought to the team and what he's brought to the region, because I think he's just a very special guy. He's at a different phase of his life.
All right, Coach, how much will the Patriots' lack of weapons start holding them back when the schedule gets tougher, when they start facing tougher opponents?
Well, just to react to Tom's comments in terms of Gronkowski, I don't think they can go get a guy like that just because if you got to convince someone to come out of retirement, they're not going to give you a lot of value. You either want to do it and are fully committed or you're not. But this is an issue, and I think the issue is on the offensive line. And as good as Dante Scarnecchia is, it's hard when you're on your 4th left tackle. Figure they've been through, it was a Nate Soldier, then Trent Brown, then Isaiah Wynn. Now they're on Marshall Newhouse. They're on their 2nd center. They lost Mike Devlin, the tight end. The 2 tight ends they have, they're a little bit banged up.
Mike Devlin, the fullback.
And then he played both. He played tight end, but primarily in the backfield. And then you've got 2 tight ends there that have been moderately productive, but they're dinged up. I think getting Ben Watson will help. Ben Watson is a different type of threat than the guys they have in place there. But losing their kicker is a significant part of this too, because that's been certainty. They could line up and kick a field goal and know that if it was a game winner, it was going through. And now they don't have that certainty, and that's a problem. They get N'Keal Harry back. That's great, or they should get him back at some point, but he's still a rookie. You don't know how he's going to do. Now, all that being said, they'll find a way to piece things together week by week, and the fact that they are so game plan specific helps them. If you're a fantasy football owner and you're trying to pick which New England back is going to pop, you don't know, because each week it's so different. And if you're a defensive coordinator, it's the same thing. Is it going to be James White? Is it going to be Sony Michel? Is it going to be Rex Burkhead? That's what presents so many problems for the people who are playing against them. But the volume of pressure that Tom's been under, even though it's only 11 sacks, he's been hit a lot, he's been pressured a lot, more so than in the past. Do I think this line will continue to get better? Yeah, because that's what they do, and that's how Dante is. Do I think they're going to be good enough in the long haul? It's a big question mark for me.
If you're not concerned about the Patriots' offensive side of the ball, from the offensive line to the weapons to a 42-year-old quarterback who is under more duress this year than in recent past, in large part because of the first 2, then to me you're not paying attention. The Patriots have statistically speaking, through 6 weeks, a historically great defense. They have faced 79 drives. 79 drives. 2 have ended in field goals, 3 have ended in touchdowns. I don't know how that's possible. They have 79 drives by their opposition. That has accounted for 3 touchdowns and 2 made field goals. The defense right now is putting the offense in the best position possible, and the offense still is not producing at an elite level. That's the other part of this. How much of a benefit do the Patriots have by how many 3-and-outs the defense is forcing, all the turnovers, all the short fields, and the fact that the opposition has to take more chances defensively because you're playing from behind almost always. In every game except the Buffalo game and the Giants game, you were behind by 2 scores for essentially the entirety of the second half. Now, is there any team that has earned more benefit of the doubt? No. Is there any quarterback that's earned more benefit of the doubt? No. Is there any team that you have more confidence is going to be a better version of itself in December than it is October? No. But the reinforcements aren't coming. The reinforcement was Antonio Brown, and he got cut. You're talking about Rob Gronkowski, who, while he was very important in the playoff run last year, we even saw last year a fully engaged Gronk was not the same player he once was. You guys talked all the time about how important James Devlin was to what they did in the playoff run. He's gone, and I said it the day it happened. You weren't here, but I'm glad to hear you agree. The biggest injury they've suffered is Gostkowski. When you're trying to win games this way, crush you with defense, great special teams, deal with the offense, the great special teams part, yeah, it's blocked punts, but it's also knowing, it's 4th and 8 from the 32. Go trot the kicker out there and kick a 49-yard field goal. You called it when the injury happened. You said they about to start going for a lot more 4th downs, and they have.
Absolutely.
Because Mike Nugent's their kicker. They're back in general population for the first time in 25 years as far as who their kicker is. That, to me, is a big concern as well.
Are you worried about where the Patriots are right now with injuries?
Well, I'm worried because the second half of last week's game, man, they were in one formation the whole time. And the tight end was limping across like the bicentennial soldier. Like when he was going in motion, I was like, why don't they just line him up, coach? They kept moving him in motion. He could barely run and everything. I was like, well, why don't they just blitz him? Because that guy, he can't run at all. And the reason why I am concerned, Jenna, is because now they're going to get into a tough schedule. The next 7 quarterbacks they got Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, and Patrick Mahomes. So now, I know the defense can't continue on that pace. So now short fields, more points, then that puts more pressure on the offense. And without solidifying that offensive line, you don't have a deep passing game. Tom Brady cannot sit back there and take 5 steps and be like, okay, let me throw the ball down the field. No, everything's going to be quick in front of them. So, yes, I'm concerned about them moving forward.
When you look at this, there are some reinforcements coming. I think Ben Watson does upgrade him, and I think if they do get N'Keal Harry back, I think that upgrades him as well. And defensively, I understand the pace that they're on, but I would wonder where those 6 offenses rank historically, because it's not like they've been pressed by those offenses in any one of those games, or the quarterback play has been exceptional. So I don't want to take anything away from it, but I'd like to put that into a little bit of a context. Now, they also get better as the season goes on because they understand who they are, they understand what they have to do, unlike other teams. So as many weaknesses as they have, it's whether or not other teams can actually exploit it. And most teams can, and they'll do a good job of protecting it. It doesn't mean that it's great, but they'll do the best with a extremely difficult situation.
The other problem they have moving forward is, Jenna, typically they do some things well early. Offensively, they're not doing a lot of things well. So you can build on those things. That's why they get better. Not only can we do this, we add this, we add this. By the time you get to the playoffs, they have a whole menu of things they can do. There's not a whole bunch of things to build on offensively to figure out what they're going to do in December and in the postseason.
Doug Peterson's a confident coach right now. What'd you make of what he had to say, Coach?
Well, he walked it back later. And here's what I'll say. Sometimes you do those interviews and you just forget how you put things in, how you present it. The thing I will say about this is I do believe the Eagles feel that way. I do believe that in their locker room, they feel like they're a good team. They feel like they're going to go down there and they feel like they're going to win. And I wonder in the Cowboys locker room if everybody's sitting around going, maybe we are, maybe we aren't. So I like that part of the Eagles' approach in the sense that there is a belief in their team. There is a belief in the things that they do, and that'll carry them a long way in a division like this. Now, whether or not they have enough to actually overcome the injuries they've had in the secondary, they haven't figured out what they can do well defensively, although they're going to get 2 cornerbacks back this week, and that should help a lot. The question is whether Dak Prescott can go out and win this game, because it's not going to be Ezekiel Elliott. They're really good against the run. This is going to have to be a game that Dak goes and wins if Dallas is going to be successful.
Yeah, I like his comments too, Coach. I didn't think that people talk about bulletin board material. There are times during the season you need a player, you need a coach to be able to say something. And I think the players, when they read the comments, even though he did back-back, the players are going to be like, yeah, that's exactly how we feel. This is one of the most talented rosters that has been hurt by injuries. And you can be at 500 at a certain point in the season and still feel like you're a good football team. We're almost to that point. After Halloween, you can't be talking about, you know something, around 500 is a good football team. Not unless you started off 2-4, 2-5, and you went on a remarkable run. We saw
Indy last year.
Texans last year. Both of those teams end up being good football teams at the end. Right now, neither one of these football teams is good, but you have those odd years where you get a reprieve that, wow, we don't have to win 10 games to win our division, because typically you think it's going to take double digits to win. It's probably not going to take that in this odd year, realizing that that's our competition. The Giants, really, are they serious? Washington, we know they're rebuilding, getting ready for next 5 years compared to next year. So in Doug's estimation, all we got to do is beat Dallas. We got them there. Let's win this game. We're still in the driver's seat as far as winning our division, getting to the playoffs.
You guys aren't going to be surprised with this. I've always thought, in large part, bulletin board material is a little overrated, especially a game like this. The Cowboys, if they're not at maximum motivation already, after 3 straight losses, after being embarrassed by the Jets, if all of a sudden they are more amped up because of what the coach of the Eagles said, then they're a lost team anyway. And I think for Philly, with Doug, he knew when the team needed to tap into a nobody believes in us thing, and I think now he feels like maybe the team needs to tap into a we're really good. Carry your, you know what I mean? We need to play better, but we need to tap into that mentality. So in that regard, I understand it. As far as like how the division goes, I can't discount the Giants. Not when I've seen Dallas and Philly play, and not when I know the schedule both of those teams have coming up. We've talked extensively about the brutal schedule Philly has coming up. You said it in the tease. Dallas, Buffalo, Chicago, New England, Seattle. It's not like Dallas's upcoming schedule is great. They have Philly and the Giants, but then after that, Minnesota, Detroit, New England, Buffalo, Chicago, the Rams, Philly again. Both of these teams have brutal schedules. Both of these teams are yet to play in the AFC East, their cross-conference matchup, the 2 teams in the AFC East that are good, the Patriots and the Bills, while the Giants already have had to deal with those teams. So I think this is oddly a race to 8. I think the winner, in the NFC East this year, 500 probably will be enough to have you not only alive for the division, but maybe win the division. But if Philly is going to be, or Dallas for that matter, anywhere close to the team that their biggest supporters thought they could be at the beginning of the year, then not only do they have to win this week, but they then have to go into this tough stretch of football and look something like it.
You could say that about both teams, though. Everyone thought the Eagles were going to be playoff bound before they started this season.
100%.
Everyone thought the Cowboys were going to be playoff bound after their first 3 games of this season. Now you see they're both 3-3. Which of these 2 teams do you trust more heading into these both respective tough stretches?
Well, just in terms of all 3 teams, the Eagles have won playoff games. They have won Super Bowls. They've got leadership in the locker room that understands what a long season it is and how things do ebb and flow, and you have to overcome things. And there is, to me, in hearing them speak, a sense of security and a sense that we can fix this. We can get this right. In Dallas, it's always teetering on where are we, who are we, what are we doing, which direction are we going. And in New York, they haven't won very much in a long time, so there's still a team that's trying to figure out, can we really win? Is this quarterback going to give us what we need? So I would give the edge to Philadelphia. In terms of bulletin board material, it's nice to think that pro athletes are always the most highly motivated, and or athletes in general are always the highest motivated. But sometimes you come into Wednesday, you're sore, you've lost a game, it's hard to get going, and then someone gives you a reminder of, hey, maybe it is time to get going, and that can be a little bit of a catalyst to get some more out of it.
Yeah, what it does is, bulletin board, when people say things, it increases your focus on that individual or on your game. So what we try to do is not say anything. So if someone is going to have a lazy week, don't wake them up.
Right.
So bulletin board material, no, it's real because you're working with the most motivated athletes ever. So any little thing, we've heard the stories, Michael Jordan clipping the newspapers, and it's real how an athlete can change his mindset and change his focus, which will change his productivity in the competition.
All right, on to the Niners, who sport the best record in the NFC, yet still somehow flying below the radar. San Fran's defense has been elite, allowing just 12.8 points per game this season, the best mark in the conference. Head coach Kyle Shanahan believes the unit is just now scratching the surface.
I'm very happy with how we played. We're 5-0, which is a great thing, but we're not playing our best ball. We can do a lot of things better than that. It seemed like our defense played at an extremely high level, obviously minus the first drive. We can continue to get better on offense. We can continue to get better on special teams. And I also think our defense is just getting started, too.
If you were calling us pretenders in the beginning, call us pretenders now. Call us pretenders the whole time, because you gotta be that way. You don't get to go hindsight is 2020 with this every year. You know what I mean? Just stick to your words, stick to your guns. We're a terrible team. We don't have enough talent. We're just, on a rebuilding year, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever the case may be, whatever your word was, please stick to it. For those who believed in us, the faithful, continue to believe in us, continue to be humble. We're going to give you guys a good show, and we're going to fight as hard as we can.
Oh my, enough, Richard Sherman. Enough with that. Okay. That being said, it just really stresses me out. And so hearing about it all the time. Look, Cece, you were the first that I've really heard to get on San Francisco's, not bandwagon, but say this is a good team.
Yeah, it's
and
a bandwagon.
Sometimes they get lost
a
little bit.
I strained my hamstring jumping on there.
In the NFC.
Quickly.
But is it time for everyone to get on board and look at the Niners as NFC contenders?
Well, this is the thing. If we were being honest with ourselves, we had a lot of hype around San Francisco last year before the season started. We were anxious to see Jimmy Garoppolo in this offense. We say great things about Kyle Shanahan. We got a lot of respect for John Lynch, the general manager there. But they just couldn't put it together with all these high draft picks that they've compiled over the last several years. Now they've put it together. That defensive front with 5 number 1 draft picks is going to be a problem. If you look at the number 1 unit that's weak in the NFL that causes teams to lose, it's offensive line. When you can put together what they've put together and you can run the ball the way you've run it.
Despite injuries. By the way, they've lost 2 tackles, one for a long time with a broken leg, and a fullback. I'm sorry to interrupt, but how many teams, as soon as they deal with one of these injuries, were like, well, you can't ask the offensive line to still be good. They're hurt. The Niners are doing it despite that.
Every year, there is a team that plays this style of ball. Now, are they able to play it to a level that can get them in the elite teams? That's where San Francisco is right now. They're going to be a problem because there's not another team that plays that style. So when you see them, it's your first time. It's like in college football when you see Army, Navy, and everything. You're like, wow, I'm not used to that type of style there, and you have a problem. It takes you a half a game to be able to adjust to that style. But I believe that they are contenders. And them and the Green Bay Packers, I believe they match up well against the Green Bay Packers with that defensive front. Green Bay's got a good offensive line.
And this is why, by the way, the NFC is so exciting, because we're talking about the 2 best teams, San Francisco and Green Bay. It's not even to mention New Orleans, who's won 4 straight games with a backup quarterback, and not even mention Seattle, who right now is the league MVP as their quarterback. Those are 4 excellent teams in that one conference, and that's leaving out the NFC East as a whole. Listen, Richard Sherman, I was one of those people, and I, much like you, am committed to take integrity.
Yeah,
however,
like him, both of you are crazy.
However, what you are allowed to do is admit, I misevaluated something. I went into the season believing the hype surrounding the Niners was hype surrounding Jimmy Garoppolo. And I was skeptical of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Rightfully, no one's really seen him.
And when we'd seen him, he'd been good, but not great. And as far as my evaluation of Jimmy Garoppolo thus far, I think it's been pretty good. Pretty spot. He's been fine. He is not a guy that can take a bad football team. I haven't seen yet and elevate it. Where I was wrong about the Niners is I didn't think they were going to be running 200 yards a game damn near every week. I thought they could have a good defense. I didn't think they could be in the argument for the best defense in football. No. And without any argument, the best defensive line in football. And so that's what's made the Niners special this year. Kyle Shanahan, 28-3 notwithstanding, manages the game well. They are beating you up with their big people, and the defense is choking the life out of you, so they're not asking Jimmy G with the limited receivers, which was a concern, to do too much.
Yeah, no one could project after 7 turnovers the defense created last year an NFL astounding number in a whole NFL season. Now, that you would think that they would be able to build that defense over a year. But the secondary has improved. The young rush group is coming together at the right time, and they went out and got Quan Alexander in free agency and paid him a lot of money coming over from Tampa Bay to solidify their linebacking core. So if there's something I was concerned about, there's 2 things with the 49ers. Number one, their pure passing ability.
Yep.
All right? When you get in passing situations outside of George Kittle, to me, I believe the second best tight end in the NFL behind Kelsey there in Kansas City. And the first problem is their inability to be able to take care of the football. If you're going to play that type of style, be defensive-oriented, run-oriented, you can't turn the ball over. Offensively, they've turned the ball over 10 times. This year, that right there ultimately will hurt you.
And by the way, they're the only team. There are 10 teams in the league that have turned the ball over at least 10 times. Every one of those teams has a negative turnover differential except for San Francisco, because they are now, after last year, the embarrassing amount of turnovers forced. They have forced 12 turnovers through only 5 games. If they find a way to get the passing game from what I would call right now a C- just to a B-, then to me they would have a legitimate claim as the best team in the league, because the offensive line is only going to get better when McGlinchey gets back and when Staley gets back, who might be their best offensive lineman. The D-line, D Ford this past week, one of their offseason acquisitions, he flashed for the first time. Nicky Bosa has been flashing the last few weeks.
Sure.
We know about Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, and while you might not like Richard Sherman yapping, Richard Sherman is playing at a high level again post-Achilles, and that matters.
He is playing at a high level, but he's totally changed from what he was in Seattle. In Seattle, when they came on the scene and no one gave him any respect and Russ took the guy's job, he was like, hey, man, look at us. You didn't know us before because we weren't anyone. He was a 6th-round pick that nobody know about his butt. Now he's like, whatever your opinion was, keep it that way. Make up your mind.
I have no problem with Richard Sherman on the field. You want people on your bandwagon. You want people talking about you.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
Yes, he does.
Otherwise, he wouldn't sit in front of a microphone and wax poetic about the most annoying rants. It's time for Take Your Pick. Baker Mayfield has had his ups and downs since being the number 1 pick last year. Meanwhile, Sam Darnold returned Sunday, led the Jets to a big win. Excuse me. So which quarterback would you rather have from the 2018 draft, Baker or Darnold? Nick, take your pick.
Baker Mayfield. I understand Baker's in the midst of the worst stretch of football we've seen him play ever. But Baker Mayfield, I still have more faith in his long-term projection than Sam Darnold. What are you laughing about?
Go ahead, bro.
More than Sam Darnold, despite Darnold looking great in his first game back from mono, which I'm worried Jenna might be trying to give to me, coughing on me the whole show.
Is that what's happening now?
This whole show, just coughing. There's no one sitting over there. Turn your face that way.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
We're covering a little baseball, Jenna. I know you love it. I'm going for I can't. You told me throw a fastball. I'm going for the curve.
Yeah?
I'm going Sam Darnold.
Get out of here.
I mean, the guy just broke the record for most interceptions.
Wow.
I mean, the guy's still only 6 foot tall. I don't like all the interviews, how the media and everything's against him. Yeah, if you tell me, look at you. Now she's throwing stuff at me. Gosh, now she's spreading the germs through the air. I'm going with Sam Darnold. Change up because of the leadership, and I like the way he does interviews.
I'm so sorry, guys. Let me recompose. That was a great answer, as was yours. Here we go. Only 2 undefeateds remain after week 6. Jimmy G and the 49ers. And Tom Brady and the Patriots. Who is the most complete undefeated team? The Niners or the Pats? Nick, take your pick.
I'm not going to listen to Richard Sherman. I was totally off the Niners bandwagon. I bet them under 9 wins before the year. Man, they have a great defensive line. They have an excellent offensive line. They have the only 2 running backs in football. Only 2 running backs in football averaging over 5.5 yards per carry. They are both on the San Francisco 49ers. I think they're limited in the passing game, but thus far it hasn't mattered. The Patriots, to me, are limited in all aspects of their offense right now. Yep. So I have to go with San Francisco.
This is normal for the show. I'm going with the Pats, Jenna. Ever since we've been on the show, what they've been doing? Going to Super Bowls, back to back to back. I'm going with the Pats. All teams in the NFL got warts, but you know what? Bill Belichick is the master magician. We won't see their warts as much as we're going to see the other team. So I'm going with Belichick. I know you going with them too, Jen. I know you didn't like the warts thing.
It did not at all, actually. The top MVP favorites are trending in opposite directions. You got Russell Wilson's got the Seahawks on a 3-game win streak, while Patty Mahomes has dropped 2 in a row. So who has a better chance to win MVP, Wilson or Mahomes? Nick, take your pick.
My answer has changed on this over the last week. Last week I said Russell Wilson was your MVP through 5 weeks, but Mahomes was the better bet. I no longer believe that to be the case. I think Russell Wilson has a better chance. Russell Wilson right now is playing better, and also at this point, Patrick Mahomes is not going to be able to match anywhere close to his touchdown numbers from last year, and I think there's going to be a little bit of, he was so good the year before, work against him, and Russell's never won an MVP. So for all those reasons, and because Russell Wilson has to be an offense unto himself in their passing game, I say Russell Wilson.
Yeah, last year, about halfway through the season, Drew Brees. Oh, my God, he's playing NFL record completions. Oh, okay. That offense ran out of gas at the end, and his numbers suffered. Patty Mahomes, because that defense so bad, Jenna, he's going to have to score. They're going to have to throw the ball. So ain't no lead that's safe enough. We saw last week's lead. Oh, that ain't safe enough. You got to keep scoring. So I do believe in his offensive weapons. The numbers we knew couldn't reach last year's numbers, but they won't be impressive enough. Patrick Mahomes wins it again.
A little role reversal now.
I know.
With that answer.
Yep, I'm getting smart.
The NFC East is led by some struggling teams. You got the Cowboys and the Eagles, each coming off tough losses. So which team do you trust more, Dallas or Philly? CC, start with you. Take your pick.
I ain't got no trust for neither one of them. Both of them been very disappointing. Philadelphia, at this point, they should be 5-1, 4-2 at the worst. Dallas, how can you lose 3 games in a row the way they've lost games after starting? We know they're a better passing team. I don't trust neither one of them, but I'm going with Philadelphia. I still believe that their roster has less holes in it, or the corrections on the defense can be corrected compared to Dallas and the injury woes on that offensive line. Nick?
In 2 weeks, the answer to this question might be the New York Football Giants. But right now,
if we have this question 2 weeks, I'm going to slap somebody.
But right now, between the Cowboys and Eagles, I have to go with Philadelphia, if for only this reason. They are the only team whose players know their coach is going to be there the rest of this year and next year. The Cowboys players, I don't think they have that certainty of their head coach. So while both teams are underachieving right now, both teams are disappointing. Philadelphia at least has that, and I think they have the more talented quarterback. I say Philly.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.